there is a lot to talk about. We were having a back and forth conversation about this even before the show started. It's about Warren's plan for Medicare for all. Plan. Here, let's do a wide shot real quick. Plan. Paul DuPont, you went into extensive research onto this. Take it away, buddy.
As much as you could say that there's much extensive, like this. Well, it's fair to say that nobody here is really all that interested in it, so we could probably. No, I'm kidding. We all have pretty strong feelings about what she has written here in her plan.
Plan.
It reads like corporate marketing speak that is like trying to beat around the bush and try to make you believe one thing about the character of the person saying these things, and that this is really truly a solid and well thought out plan that will definitely work, without ever saying what its end goals are or if it really believes in core foundational fundamentals of what it even purports to be. So it talks about everything in here to solve healthcare in America in the most technocratic ways that you can imagine. Everything seems to be dovetailed with something else. You know what the problem with healthcare in America is? It's lobbyists. You know what it is? It's banks aren't getting taxed enough. You know what it is? It's a tax on the super wealthy. You know what it is? It's diverting costs that went to state Medicaid systems that could go to federal system. And everything just, it's like she has no overarching fundamental understanding of what basic major shifts or problems need to take place in order to move to a single payer system, instead opting for completely missing the forest for the trees at every available opportunity. Let's get into the complete minutia about repatriating foreign costs from why are we talking about repatriating small business costs in foreign countries in the context of a healthcare debate? Why are we talking about immigration reform in the context of a healthcare? What's your plan for healthcare?
You want to know why, Paul?
It's all smoke and mirrors. Everything about this plan is designed around the idea of telling people, I won't raise taxes on the middle class. I won't raise taxes. I won't raise taxes. Okay, that's the main goal of this plan.
So here is our consensus here at Heartland's Media. Do you want to know what we all came up to with a final agreement? That she came up with this plan within the last week. She just stamped it all together and assumed that no one would look at it, or that people would just like pass by, oh yeah, that's similar to Bernie Sanders' plan. No, they are night and day. There's a huge difference. Paul, take it away.
I mean, the things that she's saying are not demonstrably false. I mean, you could go with some of these things. They can find money here and there. But I mean, I'll tell you, our MMT crowd in the audience knows that you don't have to, change the tax code in order to come up with revenue to do something. And this is the most telling thing to me. If you do a look through this document, the term single payer only shows up once in the document. It is a long plan. And the only context that single payer has been brought up in is in talking about the exact studies that we were talking about the other day. I think she brings up that Cato Institute study, or the Cato Institute funded study that said that the cost of single payer under Bernie Sanders' plan would be something like 32 or 34 trillion over a 10-year period. She brings up that one, and that's the only time that she mentions the term single payer. So it's in the context of a study about a single payer system. And then nowhere, anywhere else in her plan talks about advocating for a single payer, or articulates that that is the actual cost-saving thing about Medicare for all, is that it is a single payer. This is the thing that I think she goes into all of this hand-waving nonsense about finding money in all of these obscure corners of everything to obfuscate from the simple and basic fact that she doesn't seem to want to make it so that private insurance companies don't really have a place in the market anymore. And the thing that makes Medicare for all work from a financial perspective is that it is a single payer. When companies that make drugs and medical devices and medical supplies have to sell them to someone who is aggregating a risk pool, if it's one giant risk pool, that's a huge amount of marketing leverage. Because if you make, a drug that cures a thing, boy, you kind of want to make sure you sell that to the single payer who is representing 350 million individuals. That is a contract you can't pass up. But you know what? If there are 50 different insurance companies that operate under 50 different state laws and operate overlapping all over the fucking place, now they all have an incentive to make sure those prices are higher, because now the insurance companies who are paid for vicariously through the workers can charge more for that, and they don't have a financial incentive to make sure that the patient has good care or lives. And now neither does the insurance, or now neither does the pharmaceutical or device manufacturer. So they just both drive up costs. And you wonder why we have 10 times higher healthcare costs in America than we do in Canada. It's because we don't have a single payer that negotiates those costs down, that has a responsibility to the people who need care.
Right. And you know something else I want to add on to this, because let's just remember, let's rewind back the clocks. Not too long ago, Senator Bernie Sanders took just random Americans up to Canada so they can get their medicine. You know, half of those people were crying because they actually had medicine to last them for months, not 1 month or even 2 weeks, months. It was night and day. And here in this country, where we have money for endless wars and for the military-industrial complex, we have a system that basically doesn't care about its own people. And now here's another thing that we should really keep an open eye out, especially when the 5th Democratic debate happens. There is going to be a clear difference between Senator Bernie Sanders' plan and Warren's plan. They're going to talk about it. They have to talk about it.
There is a clear difference right now.
I know there is a clear difference now, but I mean they're going to have to talk about Bernie Sanders. Going to have to take off the gloves and actually call Warren's plan out for what it is.
Right.
And look, it's nothing but a quickly put together quote unquote plan. But it's not going to help out the problem. It's the same thing that we got with the Affordable Care Act. And that's just being nice about it.
Absolute best thing you can say about her plan is that she mentions Bernie Sanders' legislation favorably.
Yeah.
That's the best thing you could say about her plan. She implies that she would vote for it as a co-sponsor of that bill, that she would enact it, but that's ambiguous at best.
Yeah. Well, there's so many ways around this, and it causes a lot of problems for the working class people, because this plan incentivizes employers to hire more contract workers.
Yeah.
So we already have that problem. That problem's already growing. So this would just exacerbate the problem. And so her plan is not really a plan. It's just a ploy to come off as a progressive, like in disguise, I guess. Like she definitely, she's wavered on this before. She really doesn't care about this plan. She doesn't care about Medicare for all. She's just using it as like, oh, look, I'm just like Bernie, but I'm a woman and I'm younger, so vote for me.
But also I'm super smart. Look at all these technocratic ways it'll all solve itself.
So real quick before I hand the mic over to Daniel Lupker, just really look at her bill plan or her quote unquote plan.
Whatever, it's a mess.
Whatever it is, it looks like something. You remember, she is a professor. She wrote it like how a professor would write a teaching plan or a learning plan. It's really just that, a whole bunch of words, but no follow through. Daniel, take it away.
Yeah, so let me get on to the point Eric was making, because I think that's really important. It needs to be brought up. So two things. One, Bernie Sanders' plan, since it's payroll-based, payroll-based things do well in America. Social Security, payroll-based. Medicare, payroll-based. Super popular. Everyone has skin in it, so everyone freaks out if there's any cuts or anything of that nature. Everyone's invested. And that's really good. That's what Bernie's Medicare for All plan is. It has a payroll aspect. It has an employer aspect. It's actually very evenly spread so that everyone, more or less, except for the insurance companies, gets a better outcome than we have now. And Warren's plan, because it's so top-heavy, even if it was put into place, which it won't be, because it literally requires comprehensive immigration reform get passed and then taxed. So Warren's plan is literally built off the backs of immigrants to a degree. The big thing we've talked about on the show is that employers pay a huge amount of money to their employees to get healthcare, and that's a big reason that wages aren't going up. It's not the only reason, obviously, and I think Sanders' bill may even have language in it so that transfer happens, so that employers don't pocket the difference. But employers pay less money, and workers pay less money, to get a lot better. So if everyone's wages go up, that's a really big benefit of Sanders' plan in its effect, is that wages will go up for people because healthcare costs less. Warren destroys that entire idea, especially with the head tax, and as Eric mentioned, it's going to lead to even more people being independent contractors, because if you are forced to pay 98% of what you're currently paying on a head tax, well, I guess everyone's now a subcontractor. Everyone's now a independent employee that is working but not really an employee of, you know what I mean? So Warren's plan, if it was put in, I would work even worse than a public option, because a public option falls apart because all the sickest people go into it. Warren's plan fails because it doesn't change the system. Right. Employers still pay a huge amount, and employees aren't going to have the same skin in the game. And because of the wealth tax and all the other stuff that even she hypothetically made reality, the wealthy would immediately get it changed or watered down every year. A new law would go in, just like with Obamacare, making it weaker and weaker and weaker. And then in a decade, the bill that can't pass, that if it did pass anyway, would fall apart into nothingness.
So here, let's end this conversation here. Who's the person who has the more consistent plan? Who's the person who's running for the Democratic nomination who's consistent with Medicare for all? It's Bernie Sanders. All these other candidates are click, copy, and paste. They're saying his policies, which they would never say years ago. They're saying all the things that he said in 2016, but they're never going to follow through with them. That's the difference. Bernie Sanders has been on the correct side of history for a very long time. And when it comes down to Medicare for all, I trust his plan because he calls out the BS that's been crippling millions of Americans economically, mentally. It's just getting out of hand right now. And with Warren's plan, look, don't compare it to Medicare for all. I'm going to quote Unknown Space Pioneer. It's a hot mess for all. And I'm going to hand it over to Paul.
Yeah, I think I wanted to add this one little tidbit in, and it speaks more to Warren's general character and how she goes about legislating things. Think about the sort of marquee policy achievement that Elizabeth Warren has, the CFPB, right? Mm-hmm. In and of itself, I mean, it's trying to do a good thing, but in a specifically disempowering way, right? If you're someone who's slighted by bad business or by fraud, you don't have a court system to go to adjudicate that. This agency, if working well, goes, don't ask us for your help, citizens. We will come to your aid independently, secretly, in our own backroom dealings, figure out how much money you were defrauded by in class action sort of way with multiple people, and then just dole out checks to what we decided in a closed door without citizen input, what we think you were owed. No discussion after the fact. You didn't get to, it's literally disempowering. It's, hey, everyone, trust that we're going to get your back. How do we know that there are any assurances that that's the adequate amount of money to return to the defrauded person? How come there isn't a way for an individual defrauded person to have a process to redress their grievances? And this is the same thing. It's everyone stop looking at the healthcare system. Let's have a lot of behind the scenes background ways to make it work and pay for it and stuff, and not really change anything, because we want to make sure that the levers that people have to redress these grievances, right, to seek justice, are all buttoned up and everyone feels like they'll be taken care of because there's a process in the background that's doing it for you. It is literally disempowering.
Well, right, and I think we should also highlight that Bernie Sanders did make a comment about Elizabeth Warren's plan.
Yeah, that's correct.
But it was a very soft, like, little jab. He really needs to take off the gloves and expose people like Warren that are just trying to copy and paste and be like Bernie light.
Yeah,
he has a few months to do that.
I think
we'll
he needs to do
it
now, because like we're about to get into for polling purposes and debate purposes. He's got to really call out these people for who they are, which are just corporate tools.
Yeah, and I think one final note too is that, look, November 20th, we'll see how Bernie Sanders will defend his Medicare for all plan against Senator Elizabeth Warren. I mean, the fight's going to have to happen, and Warren has released her plan, and from our analysis, it's nothing but a disaster.